Hello and welcome to Diplomats. Today we're joined by Llewellyn Roberts, the Chargé d'Affaires for New Zealand here in Turkey. Mr. Roberts, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme.
Thank you, it's very nice to be here.
Well, New Zealand and Turkey have a tremendous history between themselves, but it started in a way that wasn't particularly colourful. We go back to Gallipoli, the Anzacs and what have you.
Yes.
So what's really quite unique is the fact that people who were in conflict are now the best of friends.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's a point that all diplomats wish they had, in a sense, to have that point of similarity, to go somewhere else with Turkey. You're absolutely right. We lost a lot of people in those Gallipoli wars, the Gallipoli campaign. So, of course, did Australia and many other countries from the Allies, but also Turkey. And I think it's such an amazing thing that a country and a leader like Mustafa Kemal Ataturk could say so many wonderful words after we came and we tried to take over the Gallipoli Peninsula. But after the war, things were forgotten and we became the best of friends.
It's even more than that, isn't it? It's not just best of friends. It's almost turned into a ritual, a festival of celebration between the two nations.
Of commemoration. For New Zealand, it's commemoration rather than celebration. For New Zealand, Anzac Day has become very, very important for our national psyche. And it's become more and more so in the last 15 years or so. We're not quite sure why this has happened back in New Zealand, but one reason we think is that the grandchildren and the children's grandchildren, when they came to ask about what Gallipoli meant to their grandparents, they were told, and they found it absolutely incredible, the story that they had. And I think it's based on respect. The idea and the horrors, and yet at the same time the mateship, the loyalty, and the respect and honour that they felt for their opposition. It's a fantastic story, and I think we New Zealanders today, and Australians and others as well, find that story to be very, very heartfelt and very, very important for them in their lives today.
Well, it goes a lot deeper than that, and that's the personal feeling, and that's the relationship that New Zealanders and Australians have built with Turkish people. But also, it's helped to foster tremendous business links between New Zealand and Turkey.
But we'd like those business links to be stronger.
Of course.
At the moment, we have some business links with Turkey, but I think it's fair to say that those business links could be better. We have a very strong political relationship with Turkey, like we were talking about before, built on the Gallipoli campaigns, but our business relationship is not as strong as it could be. When the Prime Minister was here last year, when he met with Prime Minister Erdogan, that was certainly something that they wanted to focus on. And most recently, there was a visit to New Zealand by Minister Dinscher, who led a business group down to New Zealand. And again, the object of that is to see how to ensure that New Zealand businesses know about Turkey and the opportunities that are there, and vice versa. To ensure that Turkish businesses also know about New Zealand and what we can offer.
Is there a plan to escalate that sort of activity so that the businesses can be grown? Clearly, you have a wonderful brand new embassy here.
Yes.
Yes. With some great staff. You're here
Yes.
to promote New Zealand in Turkey.
Yes.
Of course, business has to be at the bottom of that, doesn't it? So
Absolutely.
there must be some more activity in the pipeline.
Absolutely. We're one of the key outcomes of the Prime Minister's visit when he came last year was they released a roadmap, if you were, of how New Zealand and Turkey can take forward the business relationship. And again, when Minister Dinscher was in New Zealand, there was a reaffirmation of that roadmap, and also an undertaking for a joint working group to be established to identify those areas that are holding the relationship back. One of those, I think, is that there is no business councils, Turkish Business Council in New Zealand or a New Zealand Business Council in Turkey. maybe a business council is not the way to go. Maybe we need to be more innovative, given the relative size and distance. But there are many things in many areas that we're looking to take the relationship forward. Education is one, agriculture is another, and also earthquake engineering.
Indeed. Let's take a look at Turkey now from a New Zealand perspective. Turkey has grown tremendously over the years. It's always been a developing country in many respects, but in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years it's been developing at a pace. What's your view of where Turkey now sits in the global economic picture?
I think Turkey is emerging as a real powerhouse. I read somewhere that one commentator at Goldman Sachs, the person who coined the term BRICS, is now looking to coin a new term that includes Turkey, Indonesia, and Mexico. And I think he's absolutely right. If you look at the demographics in Turkey, the population growth, the economic growth, the opportunities that are here, the position of Turkey relative to the European Union and relative to a really fast-growing Middle East as well, notwithstanding things that are happening in the Middle East at the moment. And then again, even looking north as well, I think the prospects for Turkey are amazing. And if you're not, as a business person, if you're not thinking Turkey, then I think then you're missing out.
Well, the World Bank and the ECB have rated Turkey just slightly below investment level, but that nevertheless doesn't seem to stop investors coming to Turkey now. Do you think that's because there are fewer places in the world now since the economic downturn to invest with relative safety, and Turkey now is emerging as a safer place to put money?
Well, that's certainly what I've been reading as well. The commentators are talking about Turkey as being a very safe place to invest, particularly if they want to have some links into the Middle East as well. But I think there's a bigger story than that. I think there's a story about Turkey's links into the European Union as well. There's the customs union, and like I said before, there is this massive and growing domestic market as well, which can only get larger.
There's always the conspiracy theories in Turkey. It's renowned for that, and it's not an unkind thing to say. It's actually quite comical in a way. But some of those theories are that Turkish business people now, who are enjoying a great deal of success, are perhaps less interested in being part of the European Union and don't quite see what the benefits might be. Would you necessarily agree with that?
Well, when it comes to the European Union and Turkey, New Zealand generally backs away a little and allows those conversations to take place between those two regions. But I don't think that's really happening. I think if you look at the corporate Turkey and the links that they have with European Union, I can't see them not continuing those links. The European Union is a very wealthy and sophisticated market, and they, and Turkish corporations, I'm sure, will want to continue to be an active part of that market. And the European Union has very rigorous standards and conformity issues, which, if you're a Turkish business, if you can meet those standards, then you can meet them in other parts of the world as well.
Let's take a look broadly at the Middle East then, of which Turkey is a close neighbour.
Yes.
Does New Zealand have further aspirations to do more business in the Middle East?
Absolutely. The Middle East is a really important part of New Zealand's trade policy. As you can imagine, New Zealand and where it's situated, Australia is always going to feature large. So is the Asia and the Pacific region. And included in that is the United States and China. We've both, with China, we've got a free trade agreement. Moving to the Middle East, we have almost completed a free trade agreement with the Gulf Cooperation states. There are one or two things that need to be worked through, but that demonstrates, I think, our commitment to this region. And if you look at our patterns of trade over the last 20 years, there's been a long-standing commitment to this region, and I can't see that changing. In fact, I can only see it strengthening. And Turkey, in its knowledge of the Middle East, is always going to be, front and centre for New Zealand businesses. We're a long way from this region, and any expertise that we can gain through partnerships is something that New Zealand businesses will always be looking at.
So do you see the possibility then of not only having strong bilateral relations with Turkey, but also partnering with Turkey to go into third-party endeavours?
Yes, I think that's something that we really, something that we're encouraging through the action plan that the Prime Minister's announced last year. It's also something that we've been encouraging through Minister Dinch's visit to New Zealand late last month. There are some real opportunities there.
Well, Turkish Airlines is now part of the Star Alliance, of which Air New Zealand is a founding member. How much value do you place on being part of that Star Alliance for Turkey and for New Zealand?
Well, for New Zealand, it's vitally important. Air New Zealand, which is in the last 2 or 3 years has been very profitable, unlike many other airlines, because they've stuck to their knitting and they've ensured that the routes that they do are mainly direct routes. So they're very focused in the Asia-Pacific region. I think for Turkish Airlines as well, they're in a very big, rapid expansion mode. I think they're in a really useful and good geographical position, and they're making the most out of that. So they will start to fly more and more into the region that Air New Zealand also operates within. So there are the opportunities for 2 Star Alliance members to cooperate in the future.
Take a looking at business in the region, just going back to that for a second, and not going too deeply into politics, but businesses work well when there's an element of stability. And with the unrest in the Middle East at the moment, and given that the Middle East is clearly a focus for New Zealand business, there must be some trepidation with the unrest that we're seeing now in places like Bahrain, Yemen, Egypt, of course, Tunisia, Algeria.
I think that's New Zealand businesses certainly will be keeping a close eye on what's going on in this region. Trepidation may be, but I think the important thing for businesses and for governments as well is to look forward, look to the medium term, look to the long term. And I think when you look at the Middle East in that light, then the future is rosy and the future is very bright. What's happening in the Middle East? If there's greater democracy and more individual freedoms, that can only lead to greater stability in the medium and the long term as well, which is good for business.
Let's take a look at New Zealand now. A recent Australian educational survey ranks New Zealand, after pitting it against Australia, Canada, the US, etc., as one of the highest in terms of its educational standards. What can be done with that to promote New Zealand education abroad? It's
one of the things that we're wanting to focus on as an embassy in the next few years from this point. We feel that we've got a fantastic story to sell and to tell people, and I think one of the things is that people in Turkey and other parts of this region just don't know how good a story we have to say. You're right, our education system is world class, performs very well on nearly any international measure, and as well as that, it's cheaper than other countries like Australia, like other English-speaking countries as well. So we're really wanting to ensure that people, students and parents in Turkey know of those opportunities that exist in New Zealand.
Well, you mentioned it's cheaper, so obviously tuition fees play a large part in attracting students to come to university. In the United Kingdom, for example, very recently, tuition fees have increased tremendously, which has upset a lot of people, as we've probably seen in the news reports. Yes. New Zealand's done the opposite. You've managed to keep tuition fees down. How have you managed to do that?
Well, I mean, the first thing to think about when it comes to New Zealand is that our average gross domestic product per person is lower than in Australia and United Kingdom and other places, so our average costs are lower as well. But as well as that, we've had over the last 15 or 20 years quite significant structural reform, which means that there's a great emphasis on efficiency and on results and outcomes, which means that we can focus on quality for a good cost.
And does that mean that then you can open up the education system to foreign students a great deal more than is available to them at the moment?
The good question. I think that the education system in New Zealand is already, well open for business. I'm not sure what more New Zealand institutions are thinking of. Like I said before, I think we do need to promote ourselves more in certain markets, and I hope that our embassy can do its part to play on that regard.
Well, I know you've said that there are some things that could be in the pipeline. Maybe road shows about things which are uniquely New Zealand could come into a place like Turkey, so that Turkish people will learn a great deal more about New Zealand.
Well, one of the things we're looking at, and we're not quite ready there yet, but it's an idea that the embassy is kicking around, is actually doing more online. We're a small country. We're 4 million people. A lot of our market, like I said before, is around the Asia Pacific region, which is where a lot of our education institutes focus all their resources. So for other markets, I think we need to be quite innovative and nimble on our feet to ensure that people in Turkey know the opportunities, but know it in a savvy way, and that's why we want to focus more on activities such as on Facebook and other IT areas.
Well, certainly tourism plays a very large, significant part of income for New Zealand. In fact, for most countries these days, it's a very popular business pursuit. What more can New Zealand do to attract more Turkish visitors to the country?
Well, we were talking before about air links, and I think air links are really important. One of the things that I think always puts people off coming to New Zealand is the distance. Whenever I talk to people about coming from New Zealand, they say, "Oh, lovely country. I've seen Lord of the Rings. I've heard the food is good, and it's a nice place to visit, but it's such a long way away." Air links are going to make direct air links or air links into Asia and then through to New Zealand is going to make a difference. But I think also we do need to promote New Zealand more. One of the things that we're really keen to promote is that New Zealand, it's a beautiful country, but as well as that, there is a lot of cultural elements to our country. Of course, 15% of our country is Māori, and another 10% is Pacific Island, another 10% is from China. All these are now, New Zealand is becoming a melting pot, and it's a really interesting and dynamic place to visit. We call Queenstown at least the venture capital of the world, and it's not without reason. Yes.
Well, this year's Rugby World Cup will be held in New Zealand. Of course, New Zealand is a great proponent of the sport. Turkey, likewise, is looking to the sport as an enjoyable thing. But is there something that New Zealand can do to help promote the sport here in Turkey?
Well, you're right. Rugby is our national sport in New Zealand, and it's in our veins, in our blood. It's a very, very important sport for us, and the Rugby World Cup for us is such an important thing for us. We're saying that it's going to be 4 million hosts are going to be there for everybody when they come to New Zealand in September and October. We're expecting something like 60,000 people to come during that time, and who knows, we might win this time. As for the sport and promoting the sport around the world, that's done by the International Rugby Board, and I know that they're very keen on identifying opportunities to promote the sport in other areas. They've used, for example, the Rugby Sevens competition that goes from place to place to place around the world to promote the sport in that form. And one option for Turkey is to look to see if that is something that they would like to suggest to the International Rugby Board.
Well, let's hope that the bilateral relations include some rugby as well.
Who knows? Let's hope.
Mr. Roberts, thank you very much indeed for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was Diplomats for this episode. Keep watching. We'll be back again with another episode very, very soon. I'm Stephen Marnie. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.